Hey guys, this is Holt. You may know me from Your Next, VHS 2, amongst others. This is my update for the week of August the 27th. And as you guys know, I love talking to up-and-coming filmmakers. And today I have one on the show named Jake Zelch. And Jake has been working on a couple different projects. He's actually working on 2 movies right now, which is pretty impressive. The first one we're going to talk about is a movie called The Krampus Carol. So, Jake, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good. First off, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you and your love of horror. When did you decide that you wanted to actually get into the filmmaking side of horror?
You know, I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a storyteller of some format. I didn't really know whether that was writing or whether that was doing films or something like that. But, it really got to the point where I was like 26, 27 years old thinking to myself, if I'm ever going to do it, I need to do it now. And just kind of dove right into it.
So did you always want to be a director or a writer, or did the two kind of marry together from the start?
Well, I'm not. I think being a director is something that I was always interested in. But, when you're doing independent films, especially like the budgets that we have, you kind of have to wear many hats, whether you want to or not. So, I mean, it worked out pretty well. I enjoy writing and directing my own things.
So were you talking about the budgets? About what are we looking at for something like Krampus Carol?
Well, Krampus Carol, I mean, we already had all of the equipment already bought, and we shot it in my local hometown. So we had quite a few resources. Out of pocket, I think that I spent about $6,000, which is not bad at all.
Yeah, that's great. That's sort of a Robert Rodriguez type budget.
Yeah, I mean, you just run and go.
Yeah, exactly. So just for like the gearheads out there who'd love to hear this kind of stuff, what sort of equipment do you shoot on?
I think we shot that film on a 5D Mark III, I want to say. So, I mean, that's a DSLR, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's DSLR. And I know some people have, things against DSLR or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you have a film like done and it's pretty decent quality, it really doesn't matter what you shot it on.
That's right, because the thing about movies is it's really about the content, and that's something that a lot of people sort of miss, particularly when they're trying to make lower or no budget movies, because they get a little bit sometimes too involved with the technical sides, because it's very easy to make a really beautiful piece of crap.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you don't want to do that. You actually want to have content. So I mean, speaking of the content, we'll take Krampus Carol since this is the one we're talking about first. Where did the story of that come from?
Well, I mean, the story it's inspired by Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens and A Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. And I kind of thought of this when I was a little kid, being told stories by my dad, people in my family. When you're young, works wired differently. You have a vast imagination. And as a kid, I remember molding these two stories. And growing up, I would always be disappointed because, in the back of my mind, I thought this is how it should be. There should be this horror element to A Christmas Carol, which, there actually is not. So I was always disappointed. But, like I said, being 26, 27 years old, it was really nice to actually go back and kind of revisit that childhood way of thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then that's a really interesting concept too. Folding the Krampus story into A Christmas Carol seems deceptively simple.
It worked really well, so I'm pretty happy with it.
Now, Krampus Carol is a feature, is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and so when did you start working on it? Is it something that you've shot consecutively, or is it the kind of thing where, on weekends and when availability is open?
No, I actually wrote the first draft, and then I ended up finding a freelance writer to help me with the second and third draft. But we only had about, I want to say, 8 days to shoot it.
Oh, wow,
So,
a feature film.
And it's, I mean, like I said, it looks really good. At the end of the day, it's the quality of the film that really, really matters. So I know people look down on like low budget movies, or they look down on, you only had how many days to shoot this. But I mean, we were shooting every single day very consistently. There was one morning when it was 3:30 in the morning and we were just now wrapping up, So
Yeah.
it's you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I had a good friend of mine who is a director, and they shot his first feature film was shot similarly. They shot it, I think, in 6 days,
Holy cow.
and it was straight through, and the final product was something like, I mean, it was a little long. It was like a 2 hour and 10 minute movie shot in 6 days.
Jeez.
And you just go, wow, man. Because obviously you didn't sleep. I mean, did you guys sleep on Krampus Carol?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
with a schedule like that, there's just no way you could. I mean, even when we were shooting, some of the bigger stuff that I've been in as an actor, it's, you would shoot for a month or a month and a half straight, consecutive days and nights, of course, because as you know, horror films are always shot at night, long nights.
That's an added difficulty right there.
Yes, because you're always fighting the sun and everything. But we are haggard after that sort of a schedule, which is prolonged compared to, the director friend I was telling you who shot in 6 days, and this one, which was shot in 4 days. Now, you've worked with some pretty well-known actors in the genre too.
Yeah,
Brink Stevens.
Yeah. Brink Stevens.
Tell me a little bit about Brink Stevens. How you got her involved in this?
My producer Dustin Hubbard, him and Nicola Fiore, which they've both been involved with The Haunting of Mia Moss, which is my very first film, and then the sequel, which is Possession of Mia Moss, which we're wrapping up. And he actually, read the script, and he's like, I've got the perfect actress. You need to just get a hold of Brink Stevens and see if she'll do it. And I did not know about her. I didn't know about her caliber as far as an actor goes. And so, I kind of went into it like, oh, this is just another actor. And that's kind of how I treated her, you know what I mean? But you meet her, and not only has she done everything under the sun, but she's like a phenomenal person, just nice as can be and professional as can be. Her very first day, actually, I was kind of scared because she paid pages of almost dialogue that we had to get through in one day. And she barely even looked at her script. Like, she knew every single line. She knew everything about her character inside and out. I mean, her professionalism is just ridiculous.
Yeah, because Brink Stevens is sort of in the same caliber as people like Debbie Rochon and, I mean, they've just been in everything. I mean, your next, Barbara Crampton, she took a long vacation, or retirement, but, she's back now and she's doing everything under, the sun.
Yeah.
So conventions and everything else. So that's pretty impressive. Now, she worked with you on your very first feature, right? The Haunting of Mia Moss.
Mm-hmm.
So you were starting right out of the gate as a feature director with someone like Brink Stevens. That's pretty impressive.
But see, I didn't know it. I just thought she was another actress. You know what I mean? And
right.
So that's kind of why it worked so well, I believe. I didn't have that. I didn't look up to her like that at the time. Now I definitely do.
That's one of those things too. I think a lot of actors, just speaking for myself, appreciate that when you can be treated just like an actor and not like. Because there is sort of an air. I mean, even when you meet people at, when I meet people, say at conventions, they'll look at me and go like, well, they're afraid to talk to me or something. But, actors are just actors. They just want to work. It's not
Right.
So that's, in my opinion, that's the best way for a director to approach. So that seemed like that worked out really well for you.
Definitely.
Let's talk a little bit too about your writing process, because I know there are a lot of, writers out there, and do you go with a certain set routine or ritual when you're writing? How do you structure it? How do you go through that process?
Well, I write for myself. So the easiest way for me to do it is to just I have a story in my head. I kind of work with myself, personally. And then once I kind of flesh it out, I'll sit down at the computer and I'll just write out, whatever comes to mind. Whether that's what I originally had thought of, or whether it's something that just kind of came to mind, as I was sitting there. But I think it's really, really important to, go through 5 or 6 different drafts even if you're shooting a small budget movie, even if you think it's not going to amount to anything, you know, you really got to take the time with the writing, because that's, you know, that's the building blocks.
Yes, and that's great too, because I think a lot of people do kind of want to get to the shooting, but if you don't have a good script, it's not, you know, you're not going to have anything to shoot that's worth anything. So that's great to hear, because yeah, you really do have to go through multiple drafts. And you were talking about how you had worked with some collaborators in terms of the screenplay. Now, when you worked with them, was it something where you did a draft and then you sent it to them, or did you work in collaboration on the individual drafts?
A little bit of both. Curtis Carnahan, he's my DP for basically everything up until now. We collaborated on The Haunting of Mia Moss, and we kind of clashed with different ideas and things like that. But I mean, it worked out in the end. As far as Aaron Jorgensen, he's the one that I collaborated with. Krampus Carol, he's somebody that I actually hired. So, you know, there was money involved. So it was kind of a back and forth thing, but the end result, I mean, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's all that matters in the end, is how it comes out. But it's always kind of interesting to hear, for me, and I assume for others, to hear about you know, a writer's process. So did you go through any, like, do you do written outlines, or like you say, you just mill over it in your mind and then you go into the script phase?
It kind of just depends on the project, but you know, I don't have to know all of the characters inside and out before writing. Sometimes reveal themselves. Sometimes certain scenarios in the film, you know, that end up being huge scenarios that I never imagined in the beginning. But I think for anyone that writes anything, you kind of got to be a little crazy. You kind of got to just create your own process a little bit, and either it works or it doesn't, depending on the project.
Sure, yeah. Now, you say that most of these movies, I think you did a Kickstarter for some completion funds on Krampus. What is that? What was that experience like for you? Because you hear different stories.
As far as Kickstarter goes?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I tried to run a Kickstarter for Krampus a few months back, and with Kickstarter, it's all or nothing. So if you don't raise it, you know, the project cancels. That's how that works. And so, you know, we didn't meet our goal, and it canceled, and it's not the end of the world. For the second one, the one that I think we only have about 20 hours left, maybe at that, I set the goal at $1,000, and that's you know, that's just enough for me to get the very last few scenes that we need, because I have Brink Stevens involved with this. She's going to be doing kind of this this intro and this outro that's very Elvira inspired, kind of like this host, this narrator part. But you know, it costs money to get her. It costs money to do that. Even though it's a small scene, it's going to cost a good chunk of change. But my experience with Kickstarter is that normal people who are not filmmakers, they kind of have this perception that that's free money. That, oh, you got, you know, $2,000, $5,000, $20,000. You're just pocketing that stuff, you know, and you know, at the end of the day, making a movie, it costs so much money that, or at least in my experience, that there's just no extra room. You know, yes, we met our goal, but that, you know, that's the bare minimum goal.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm not a fan of Kickstarter. I'd like to find another way. Maybe, you know, maybe make some money off of filmmaking. That might be nice one of these days, but I'm still starting out, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, the thing about Kickstarter too, and you were talking about some people who will criticize a project. A lot of times, you know, you also have to kind of weigh the fact that if you want to do this and you maybe don't have the dedication to go through this much as you do, you know, there's always that sense of I don't know if jealousy is the word, but you know, this is a mean-spirited business, and people are always a little snarky, you know, so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, though I know it can be very irritating, you know, when it's happening. But I'm very proud that you got the, you know, the completion money, because that's great. I mean, you know, Kickstarter is also kind of a hit or miss thing. You just, as you were saying on the first attempt, you just really never know.
Right.
You know, and particularly when you have a project that, you know, isn't Halloween number 17 or something, you know, which, you know, you're trying to do something original, something that you've come up with, and but it helps, of course, that you have someone like Brinke Stevens. That always kind of gives a little bit of that, stamp of approval from the horror fans that go, "Oh, well, this is a real movie,"
Definitely, yeah. Well, I mean, you should all backup plan. Kicks can't be your end all. You got to have a backup plan.
Yes, that's right. Because
even if that means putting your own money into it.
Yeah, as much as you can do yourself in a low budget scenario, the better, because then you don't have to worry about anybody else. That's definitely true. Well, you were talking before about your first feature film, which is The Haunting of Mia Moss, and the film you're working on now is The Possession of Mia Moss, and that's what you were filming on the set of that today. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, we were filming about 3 hours away, so driving there and driving back. God, that felt like the entire day.
Right.
Shooting was the easy part. It was driving there and driving back. That was the hard part.
Yeah. So that was. So did you always know you were going to do two close together? That this was a two-parter deal, or did it just come about naturally that you would do the sequel?
I knew when we were shooting one that I had kind of the idea that a part two would be nice. That there were some unanswered questions. I hate it whenever you do a movie and just everything's laid out for you, and you don't have to guess at anything, you don't have to think about anything. It's just laid out for you. And so for The Haunting of Mia Moss, I really wanted that to be very unconventional, the way that the story is told. And so the second one, they're both kind of standalone films, but they complement each other. They answer each other's questions. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think I'll be happy with it. But
it's cool.
Yeah, at the time, whenever we had Brinke Stevens and some of the other actors, I just thought it would be a good idea to maybe toy with the idea of a sequel, and it just worked out.
Well, that sounds really awesome. So you were working on that today. You have someone with you, I believe, who was an actress.
Feltz.
Yes,
Yeah.
Erin Feltz, and she's with you here on the broadcast. You want to invite her over? We'll talk to her a little bit.
Hello.
Hello, Erin. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So you've been working with Jake on several films now, I understand.
Yeah, sure have.
The one you're working on right now is The Possession of Mia Moss. Do you want to talk about how you became involved in Jake's projects?
So it's kind of like accident. We had a mutual friend, and I knew that he did some movie stuff, but I didn't really ask too much about it. And he messaged me and was like, "Oh man, the person who was supposed to play her backed out at the last minute. You think you could do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds like fun. Let's do it." And so I get there, and he had all sorts of makeup and stuff. I'm like, "By the way, I also do effects makeup." And he's like, "What, really?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I put on makeup, and we just went for it. And it was kind of shocking because I've never really done anything like that, but also really fun. So it was cool.
Yeah, well, that's great because that's always useful on a low-budget film set, is to have someone who can multitask many different things for you. So, did you always want to be an actress, or was makeup more? I mean, what was there a priority in filmmaking?
Well, I kind of just am an artist in general. I like to work with all sorts of different mediums, and so just simply the creativity of it is something that I really liked. And I've always kind of yeah, it'd be really cool to get into film. It'd be really cool to do movie and stuff, but I don't know how to do it. And so it kind of just randomly fell into my lap, all the opportunities. And so I've been doing sort of special effects makeup for Six Flags Fright Fest for several years. And so I already knew how to do a lot of the stuff. Obviously, I'm just kind of a novice who picked things up on my own, but yeah, pretty much. So I'm just an artist, and I like to do all sorts of medias. And I wasn't sure, I didn't know how to do anything. I kind of fell in love with film, honestly. It's really cool, how everything gets sewn together, but it's all shot separately, and it's a neat medium. It really is.
Yeah, there are a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of different opportunities, which is what Jake and I were talking about before, from a story standpoint and a technical standpoint as well. Did you find acclimating to the acting side easy? I mean, was it a natural thing, or did you have to kind of work your way into it?
Well, I had never like really had any acting experience. The only acting experience I had was being a monster during Fright Fest. So, and that's live action street performing. So it's just kind of improv as you go. You kind of read people's emotions, and you kind of guess what's gonna get them. And so I've done acting as far as that goes, and it was really fun being a monster for him. And in this film, he's like, "Okay, Phelps, I want you to be a face character. You think you can do it?" I'm like, "I think I could do it." You know, I think that one of the most important things is to really believe in yourself and to just come at it with confidence and just learn on your way. And I had also been kind of watching these other actors who had been in his other films. And so really, I just think about like what they did, and I do it, but for myself. So it really helped. It really helped watching them.
Yes, and it's good. And it's good when you have good material to work from, too. That's always very, very helpful. Did you get to work with Brink Stevens at all?
I did. She's amazing. She's such a nice lady.
Yeah, she's
so
definitely
talented.
Yeah, she's a great person to learn from, I would imagine, on the set.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, she's just a gem. She really is. And I did some makeup on her, and of course, there was a couple scenes where I was the shadow person, the shadow woman, kind of crawling up on and like choking her and like giving her a little bit of abuse, and that was fun. And it was nice. It was fun. She's a great actress.
Yeah, she is. She's a legend, in her own right. That's great. That I was telling Jake, it's a great thing to start off with, in your first few films, to have someone like Brink Stevens around. That's. So, what is the general atmosphere like on one of the films? Say we're talking about here, Possession of Mia Moss. You guys, is it pretty loose, or is it pretty tightly scheduled, or?
We do have a schedule, but at the same point, any ideas or anything like it would be really good in there. Jake's amazing at just listening to like our ideas and what we have to say. And sometimes like he's got an idea and I've got an idea and it comes together. But for the most part, we do have a schedule, but it is kind of relaxed. Like it's kind of it's definitely a very relaxed atmosphere. We're like, okay, well, we did that. Let's go on to this. Now let's start getting this set up and maybe have some tea in between. And it's a really, he's really easy to work with, and it's a great environment. It really is. It breeds creativity.
That's great, yeah, because it's always good, as an actor, I know that, you have to be relaxed when you're doing these things, because there's a certain amount of self-confidence, or really self-consciousness, I should say, that comes along with anything, no matter how long you've been doing it. So, yeah, that's really awesome. Well, it was great talking to you, Erin.
It was good talking to you, too. Thank you so much.
Yes, no problem at all. Throw Jake back on, and we'll wrap up this show.
All right. Well,
all right.
Have a good one.
And best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. You go.
Thank you. Isn't she awesome?
She is, yes. She seems like she'd be a great person to work with, Jake.
She is. She's very creative.
Fantastic. Well, I think, we've talked about some pretty in-depth things here tonight, and I'm very happy you've had so many projects in the works, and everything's going so well for you. Is there any other future things you'd like to talk about or promote? Do you have any other crowdfunding things coming about, or anything you'd like to plug?
I think Savage Vengeance is definitely something that I'm going to be working on. I don't know if you've seen the original. It's a Donald Farmer feature.
I've seen it.
It's a little rough to watch, so I want to kind of bring it, up for today's audience. I want to kind of, change the story up a little bit, make it really gritty. What I love about it is that there's kind of almost iconic moments. If you take like the chainsaw kills into account, and you take the the shotgun to the groin into account. I really want to kind of highlight some of those moments that could be really great if they were reshot and redone. So I think that's going to be, probably the next project after this once we're done.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Is that already in the script phase right now? You haven't shot any of that yet?
Yes. No, I haven't shot it. It's still working story, still just trying to make sure that it's that it can be.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic, man. And I'm very happy that everything is going well with your projects. I want you to keep me updated on what you're doing in the future.
I will, definitely.
And also, if you guys want to know more about Jake's projects, the Krampus Carol and Possession of Mia Moss, you can find links in the description below where you can go and check out their Facebook pages. Jake, thanks a lot, man, for joining me tonight. I had a good time talking to you.
Yeah, I did too. Thank you for doing this interview.
Oh, yes, it was my pleasure. And guys, I hope you all have a good night, and I will see you next week with another show. Take care of yourselves.